The process under compulsory acquisition, it's fairly straightforward, but there's a couple of trips and traps in it. So when you start, the acquiring authority will send a letter and they usually will say something along the lines that you have a 6-month negotiation period before anything more formal happens. Now, in reality, most acquisitions take about 18 months. So from the day that you get a letter saying we've got some bad news to tell you, we've got to take some of your property, or we're putting a power line on it, or whatever it happens to be, you will probably have about 18 months. Throughout that process, we are here to help to try to resolve it by a negotiated agreement. Probably 80% of the time, that is what happens. We get the case to the point where we can extract as much as we possibly can under the parameters of the Act, and then we say to you, this is how much we can get. We don't think we can get any more money. We recommend you take it, or alternatively, we actually don't think that the acquiring authority has given you enough money. You now need to fight it. So that will only happen usually after about 18 months, when it is that the land is actually required. At that point, the government will issue a proposed acquisition notice. That gives us more or less about a 3-month deadline to come to any other agreement. So at the end of, say, the 18 months, there will be another 3 months, and then we know in that period of time, if there is no agreement, it will go to a determination. The determination is then very much a different sort of next step, so it's no longer negotiated. The determination is it's like a mini court case. I call it a mini court case because it's primarily on paper with one meeting with the Valuer General. I personally will go to that meeting with the Valuer General. I will take that valuer around your property. I will explain why it is that we have put a certain figure on it, and then I will put in written submissions. And sometimes the acquiring authority will put in written submissions, but other times they don't always. That Valuer General who's appointed will then make a decision. That is a determination that's made. You are not stuck with that determination though, but you can be. Our job when the determination is then issued is to advise you and say, we've done really well, we're not going to get any more if you continue to fight it, or alternatively, we think that there's some more in this. And where there is some more, where we think that that's got good prospects, we can then file, and we frequently will file, appeals in the Land and Environment Court. For you to then go and do that, you might take another 6 to 12 months. Most of the appeals are then also settled. So you go back to nearly where you started with another negotiation. The process can be up to 3-4 years, but in the vast majority of the time, it's over in 18 months. And I will have cases that are sometimes over in 6 months, although that is becoming rarer, unfortunately, for people, because most people want to have it dealt with sooner rather than later. But you could usually work off roughly an 18-month period as a rule of thumb. In any actual case that I'm acting in, I will know what that timeline is. In saying that, the government will sometimes change their timeline. It will depend on the acquiring authority, but I will certainly be able to give you advice on that, and I will be able to keep you up to date on that. And sometimes we can push it forward with their consent. We can ask for things to be shorter, and the opposite can happen. A lot of the time we ask for things to be extended because people want more time, particularly if it's a full acquisition and you have to move, say, your family home, or if it's an investment property and you want to find another replacement property. So there can, to a certain degree, be time limits that are flexible, but when the acquiring authority needs land, they need it, and they will have a date, and a lot of the time that will be set in stone at the beginning, but in some projects it won't, and it will be pushed out. It's a long answer to say we can never tell for sure, but a couple of years is probably how long you're going to have to deal with this. But we will talk you through all of that and do our best to try and obviously make it as short as possible, which is what most people want. Vast majority of people do not want to go to court, but sometimes we just have to. Sometimes we're just not given the fair amount and we just don't have a choice but to do that.